Order. Before we begin, I'd like to remind members to observe social distancing and to wear masks. I'll call Kim Leadbeater to move the motion. I would normally then call the Minister to respond, but I think Teresa Villiers wants to make a very brief contribution. But obviously, any time that's taken will limit the amount of time the Minister's got to respond. This is only a half-hour debate, and there won't be time for the lead member, Kim, to respond at the end. So, without further ado, Kim Leadbeater.
Thank you, Mr Davis, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to open this debate, my very first Westminster Hall debate. I beg to move that this House has considered the 20th anniversary of the Gujarat riots. The riots took place in the days following the 27th of February 2002 in the Indian state of Gujarat. The precise death toll remains a matter of dispute, even now as we approach the 20th anniversary of those events. There is no agreement on the facts of what happened, never mind about who was or was not complicit in instigating the violence or allowing it to continue. All we can say with certainty is that at the very least 1,000 people lost their lives, and that the majority of them were Muslims. There have been numerous investigations and inquiries, including by the Indian Supreme Court and highly respected organisations like International Human Rights Watch, but as far as I am aware, none of these has reached conclusions acceptable to all parties, communities and faiths. It is not my role here in the British Parliament, very distant in both time and location from those horrific occurrences, to pass judgment. I wouldn't be able to do so even if I wanted to. What I can do, and what I very much do want to do, is to consider the legacy of what happened from the point of view of the families of those who lost their lives or were seriously injured. That is what today is about, acknowledging the loss and hopefully providing some comfort and maybe even some closure for those families. Every act of violence has repercussions well beyond those caught up directly in it. Some survivors and relatives will never fully get over the trauma of what happened. For others, while the pain may lessen over time, it will never disappear completely. As honourable members will know, I have some personal experience of this. Not just of the loss and the hurt, but crucially also of the desire to never forget our loved ones and to try and learn something from the most horrific of events and to do all we can to ensure they are not repeated. I will give way.
Mr Chairman, I congratulate the Honourable Lady in bringing forward her first Westminster debate. I know it will be the first of many, I have no doubt about that at all, but this particular one, I'm going to congratulate her as well. Does the Honourable Lady not agree that devastating events in these days of riots that lead to possibly thousands of deaths that the Honourable Lady referred to hold lessons that we must be reminded of, and that continuing to remember this time of the 2002 Gujarat riots is essential in teaching our children what the result is of intolerance and anger? That's getting it right. Thank you.
I thank you to the right honourable gentleman for his intervention. I agree 100% with what he said. We have to learn from the past, and far too often events are not acknowledged, the past is rewritten, and we have to find a way to make sure that these things are never forgotten for the future of our children.
Thank you very much, and I commend my honourable friend, the member for Batley and Spence, for having secured this important, sensitive but timely debate to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the 2002 Gujarat riots on behalf of bereaved constituents. Does my honourable friend agree that those riots, the death and destruction, displayed the very worst of humanity, whereas it's actually important, it's crucial that we acknowledge the importance of respect for all religions, and the importance of living peacefully side by side? And does she also agree with me that it's imperative that the victims actually receive justice, finally, from the authorities?
I thank my right honourable friend for his intervention, and I agree absolutely with what he said. We have to ensure that we find a way, wherever possible, to live peacefully, and I will talk about that in more detail as I continue my speech. As I've said, many, many people lost their lives in the rioting. I cannot speak for the families of all of them, other than to say that whatever your background, whatever your faith or religion, whatever your politics, if you have any, the suffering you feel is no different to anybody else's. Every family's story will be different, but I want to talk about one family in particular, as they are constituents of mine in Batley and Spen, and are indeed with us here today in the public gallery, along with relatives and supporters. It is on their behalf that I ask that the anniversary of the Gujarat riots is marked with respect in this parliamentary debate, and that their belief that justice has yet to be done for what happened is acknowledged. On the 28th of February 2002, 4 tourists were on their way back from visiting the Taj Mahal. It should have been the trip of a lifetime. Their names were Sakil and Saeed Dawood, their 18-year-old nephew Imran, and their childhood friend Mohammed Aswat. Not long after they crossed the state border into Gujarat, their jeep was stopped at a roadblock. A mob encircled the vehicle, demanding to know their religion. They replied that they were Muslim and that they were British citizens on holiday. In the violence that followed, Sakil, Saeed, Mohammed and their driver were all killed. Miraculously, although Imran Dawood was left for dead, he survived and he is with us today. It is only through his testimony that we know the circumstances of what happened. He remembers Saeed and Sakil pleading for their lives to be spared. And it is his fight for justice that brings the international campaign for proper recognition of what happened to my constituency of Batley and Spen. Nothing that is said or done today can bring Sakil, Saeed or Mohammed back. But that doesn't mean that nothing can be done to provide some comfort to the Dawood family. And after 20 years, possibly even some sense of being able to move forward with their lives. It causes them enormous hurt that the remains of their 3 young men have never been returned to them. So I'd ask the Minister to investigate with the Indian authorities whether the repatriation of the remains is possible, and if so, that it should happen as soon as practicable. They have also asked about the possibility of an inquest being conducted in this country, a request that I have passed on to the coroner. And I have given the Minister notice of my own request that any so far unpublished report into the rioting carried out on behalf of the British High Commission or the government at the time be made public. I know how sensitive and emotive this subject is, but at the heart of this debate is a family who are grieving. And I know it means a huge amount to them that we are able to be here today, not just to mark the occasion of the anniversary, but to also reflect on the issues surrounding it more generally. The Dawood family tell me that recent reports of renewed anti-Muslim violence only make it harder for them to move on with confidence that the terrible events of 2002 could never happen again. I will.
Sincerely of bringing this debate on this issue, which so tragically impacted the Dawood family, some of whom live in my constituency. This is a terrible story of bigotry-motivated violence, and I just want to say here today that I shall continue to work with her to help my constituents seek justice as they have long deserved.
I thank the honourable gentleman for his intervention and for meeting with me earlier to discuss these events. Once again, let me make it clear that I am not seeking to make a judgment from afar. And undoubtedly, intercommunal violence is sadly not unique to India. Tragically, we see it in many parts of the world. I'm sure there is agreement across all parties here at Westminster that anything and everything that can be done to prevent such violence should be done. I will.
I'm very grateful to her, and can I thank her for the sensitive way in which she has chosen to speak about what are truly unspeakable events. The burning of the train at Godra and the chain of violence that erupted saw terrible acts committed and license given to hatred on both sides of the religious divide. She has focused not on hatred, but on healing, not on blame, but on balm. I think the whole House will support her request that everything possible should be done to help her constituents identify the remains of their loved ones and, if possible, to return them safely to them here in the UK.
I thank my right honourable friend for his important intervention and appreciate his support on this matter. I've spent recent years since the murder of my own sister making the case for stronger, more united communities, where we focus on what we have in common as human beings, not the things that might divide us. And I believe if we work together in that spirit, we all benefit. If we allow our differences to define us, we all pay the price. Even before I became a Member of Parliament myself, I made the case that political leaders have their part to play too, by doing what they can to heal divisions and not make them deeper. In the words of Barack Obama on a visit to India in 2015, every person has the right to practice his faith without any persecution, fear or discrimination. I believe these powerful words and important principles should guide all nations. They cannot be repeated too often. The deeper they percolate down into the heart of communities, the better chance we have of reducing those tensions that all too easily lead to unspeakable violence. So let me close with a few words to the families of all those who died in the riots. If the best wishes of a humble backbencher in a faraway parliament can bring any comfort, then I send you mine. When you're grieving a lost one, all the political arguments, accusations and counter-accusations rarely count for much. Every victim is somebody's son or daughter, somebody's brother or sister, father or mother, friend or neighbour. They are never just a statistic. They are human beings whose lives were brutally cut short when they shouldn't have been. So it is right that we remember them here today, and I thank honourable members for joining me in doing just that.
This House has considered the 20th anniversary of the 2002 Gujarat riots, and can I give my condolences to the family as well. I would normally be calling the Minister straight away. I should give her about 15 minutes, but Teresa Villiers has indicated with the permission of Kim, you can speak, so over to you, Teresa, briefly. Thank you.
Member for Batley and Spen, and to you, Chairman, for allowing me to intervene briefly. This is, as the Honourable Member has said, an important opportunity to remember all the innocent victims of those terrible events in Gujarat 20 years ago. And that, of course, includes the 59 people who died on the Sabarmati Express train. Like the Honourable Member, I want to express my condolences to the families of those people, of course to the constituents of the Honourable Member for Batley and Spen, and to everyone who lost loved ones in this shocking outbreak of violent rioting. And I think it is important to acknowledge that there have been extensive investigations into the events of 2002, including a special investigation team appointed in 2009 by the Supreme Court of India. A number of people have been convicted and given long prison sentences. And these matters have, of course, also been the subject of extensive scrutiny and debate in the Indian Parliament. The values of respect for the rule of law, parliamentary democracy, and constitutional protection of the rights of religious minorities, these are at the heart of the Indian political system. And I believe that these values have shaped the response to the tragic events in Gujarat. There's been a clear determination to learn from what happened, to do everything possible to try to stop such riots ever occurring again, and to bring to justice the perpetrators of this completely unacceptable violence and rioting. Thank you.
Now the Minister responds. Minister.
Thank you, Mr Davis, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship this afternoon. And can I also start by congratulating the Honourable Member for Batley and Spen for securing this debate today, because it provides us the opportunity to pause and remember the tragic events and all those affected by them, including the innocent victims from her constituency, Sakil and Saeed Dawood and Mohammed Aswat. My thoughts go out to their families, some of whom I know are in the gallery today. There is a deep connection between the UK and India, one of the world's oldest democracies and world's largest. I recognise the contributions from all members through interventions, but also through the speeches as well. And I will try and respond to the points that have been raised. The intercommunal violence in Gujarat in 2002 was serious and tragic. It is a sobering reminder of the need to continually work for respect and harmony between religious communities, an issue shared by both of our two democracies. As we have heard, a nephew of the British victims, Imran, was injured but thankfully survived the horrific attack and was rescued by police. As the honourable member has mentioned, he is here in the gallery today. We have provided consular support to the families of the British victims since 2002, and we will continue to provide assistance as needed. I acknowledge the hurt the families must feel that the remains of their loved ones have not been returned to them. We have been advised by the family's legal representatives that an application has been made to the court in India for the remains to be returned, and we stand ready to support this application once it's been made. Regarding the coroner's inquest, we stand ready to engage and provide further consular assistance to the Darwood family if requested. And we're not aware of any unpublished reports into the riots carried out by the UK government at the time. During the riots, many women were raped and Muslim homes and businesses were destroyed. According to official figures, the violence claimed more than 1,000 lives, though many reports suggest the true figure is higher. The then Prime Minister Vajpayee and the government of India strongly condemned the violence in the months that followed. The rights and protections of religious communities around the globe is a priority for this government, and we will continue to condemn any instances of discrimination because of religion or belief, regardless of the country or faith involved. India has a strong tradition of diversity, and we look to India to uphold all freedoms and rights guaranteed in its strong constitution. We have a strong relationship with India. We raise the importance of freedom of religion and belief in India, including the impact of legislative and judicial measures directly with Indian authorities at appropriate times. UK ministers and diplomats also maintain a dialogue within a range of Indian faith leaders and communities across India. Through our High Commission in New Delhi, we support a UK-India interfaith leadership programme which brings together emerging Indian faith leaders to foster understanding and respect. It's because of our close relationship with the Government of India that we're able to raise important issues where appropriate, including on the rights of minorities. India is central to the UK's India-Pacific tilt, and both governments are committing to taking the relationship from strength to strength. Our 2030 roadmap, which was launched by the Prime Minister and Prime Minister Modi last year, will further advance our comprehensive strategic partnership. This benefits people across both countries. It supports regional and global security and prosperity. The UK's 1.6 million strong diaspora community provide a unique living bridge of people, commerce, ideas, institutions and culture. More than 1 in 5 all-student visas are issued to Indian nationals. Indian healthcare professionals are the largest non-British group of staff in our NHS. And we recently launched negotiations for a comprehensive UK-India free trade agreement, which would particularly benefit the north of England, Wales and West Midlands and Northern Ireland. India is the pharmacy of the world, plays a vital role in supporting global equitable access to vaccines. Oxford University, AstraZeneca and the Serum Institute of India are collaborating to develop vaccines at scale. And we will work together to uphold democratic standards. We're committed to India becoming a permanent member of the reformed UN Security Council. And we'll work with India as a strong partner to support its COP26 commitments, including through a $1 billion green guarantee and the British International Investment Partnership. 20 years after those dark days in Gujarat, it's right that we remember the victims of that violence and their families and all those who died in those tragic events, including those in Batley. It's also right that we reaffirm our commitment to do all we can to foster intercommunal understanding and respect around the world and prevent such events happening anywhere. That's why the rights of those from minority groups are an essential part of our dialogue and our partnership with India, a country whose constitution protects the rights of citizens of all faiths. It's a partnership and a friendship that is very important to us, and it's a partnership that brings immense benefits to a diverse range of people in both of our countries.
Thanks, The question is that this House has considered the 20th anniversary of the 2002 Gujarat riots. As many as are of that opinion say aye. On the contrary, no. I think the ayes have